Pirate histories come in two flavors. Some are borderlands histories, that is, frontier histories. They highlight the limits of state authority at the periphery, the strength of local institutions and power brokers out there, and the persistence of local political arrangements. This is the camp I belong to. Others, including the works of Rediker, Ritchie, Starkey, and Burgess, are national histories. These studies tell a story of national governments extending their reach into the sea and coastal towns and using force to make these peripheral local communities at sea and port conform to the will and the rules of the national government. Thus, Rediker's camp tells us that when England turned a blind eye to piracy, or even encouraged it, piracy flourished. But when England decided to eradicate piracy, it did so swiftly and thoroughly. With this framework, Rediker's book describes the opening growth, the opening and growth of a maritime frontier during the golden age of piracy. And then it tells about the closing of this frontier, explaining how and why this happened. I told you in a previous video that I'm a colonial or imperial historian, and so I brought with me the sensibilities of colonial and imperial history when I moved into this piracy field. Namely, I brought an interest in dynamics between center and peripheries. By the same token, Marcus Rediker was and is a labor historian, and that explains his interest in pirates and his understanding of piracy and its demise. Rediker's always been interested in pirates as laborers, and he sees them as enemies of commerce and enemies of an emerging capitalist social and economic order. He understands them as a counterculture. This explains the threat that they posed to society and explains why society despised them, vilified them, chased them, prosecuted them, and eradicated them, transforming the Atlantic within 30 short years, from the 1690s to the 1720s, from a wild, lawless, violent frontier into an English pond. This incredible transformation was achieved by energetic and forceful action against pirates at sea by the Royal Navy, and at port by merchants, legislators, prosecutors, judges, and juries. Later this semester, you'll read my book in which I argue that Rediker's narrative is indeed incredible in the sense that it is not credible. But we'll leave that debate for another day. For now, I just want to point out that this topic of when and how and why piracy disappeared is a preoccupation unique to scholars who work on the Atlantic Ocean. This is because the demise of piracy in the Atlantic was anomalous. While piracy has persisted and flourished elsewhere around the globe to this very day, as you know from the Unit 1 reading assignment, it disappeared in the Atlantic and Mediterranean. So disappearance is not as intriguing an issue for historians whose work covers the Pacific and Indian Oceans. Their pirates never did disappear, and their descendants are still on the job today in the Indian Ocean and off the coast of Africa. By contrast, for scholars of the Atlantic, piracy's disappearance is the central question that cannot be ignored. When, how, why? And the answers you provide for these questions shape your whole understanding of who pirates were and what piracy was.